You're listening to the Apple Insider Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Apple Insider Podcast. We're recording on today, Tuesday, May 10th, which is a little unusual for us. But here at the Apple Insider Podcast, we cover all things about Apple, iOS, iPad, iPhone, Apple TV, more. And today we're talking about home automation and smart homes with Carley Knobloch. Hi, Carley. Can you tell our listeners just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So, hi. First of all, thank you so much for having me. This is so fun. I am Carley. I'm the technical consultant for the HGTV SmartHome 2016, which I'm excited that we're going to be talking about. I also have a blog called Carley K, where I really help people sort of try to make sense of the ever-evolving world of technology. I have 2 kids and I run a business and I'm traveling a lot. So I'm always looking for and then sharing with my audience sort of the very best of technology that kind of makes life a little bit less crazy, and a diehard lover of all things Apple.
Fantastic. So the smart home is in Raleigh, North Carolina this year. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I'm a fan of that just because I'm from Raleigh. So this is excellent. I hope that there's a chance for me to get to see it. I know that the media open house day already happened, but
well, we'll make sure you're on the list for next year, and maybe there will be a chance for you to go in and see it. But it's fabulous, and Raleigh's great. So it was a pleasure to be there this year and working on it.
Now, let me ask first of all, what kinds of things went into the smart home this year?
We're always building a house with the winner in mind. So the house will be, is currently, the sweepstakes has begun. So you can enter daily for a chance to win the house, but eventually somebody will win the house. And so we're looking to build these houses. They all have a slightly different take, but this one definitely has, a small family kind of feel to it. It's got great wide open living spaces. But there's a baby's room. There's, another great room that could be easily a guest room or a room for a teenager. There's lots of space to sort of spread out and grow. So we're thinking about the family that will ultimately live there. And we're sort of trying to build in not just the design and the architecture, but into the technology, things that will make them feel more secure, have more fun, and sort of generally have more conveniences.
Okay, so you mentioned security. So what kind of things do you address with security?
So a number of things. So the house has wiring for an exterior camera system so that you can have cameras all around the exterior of the house. The front door of the house has a smart lock on it. And I believe that is a Schlage lock, which is tied into the central home integration system so that you can see the status of the lock and unlock that from anywhere that you are, both with the iPads in the house and any other iPhones or any other devices that you have attached to that system. And we have a garage door opener that's also smart, from LiftMaster. So that garage door, again, you can see the status of it from wherever you are. You can open or shut the garage door from wherever you are. And I think all of those things in combination really and then I forgot one of the most important things. We have a great alarm system from SimpliSafe, which is completely wireless. So it's a great it works perfectly well in this multi-level family home, but also could be great for someone who maybe doesn't own their home or can't afford to put in a wired alarm system. So SimpliSafe is great. It's sort of like a peel and stick system. All the sensors you can install in seconds, and they all talk to a wireless bridge in the house, which then talks to your phone. So I think all of those things together work in concert to kind of create, a lot of security and peace of mind and a lot of the ability to sort of monitor things when you're not home.
Now, you mentioned that they tie into a central system. Can you tell me a little about some of the benefits of connecting with an integration system like Claire and what makes Claire the choice?
Yeah, so a number of things go into choosing the smart home system for the house. A lot of the decisions are made by the ad sales team, actually. But this one was one that we were interested in experimenting with in the absence of a home integration sponsor for the house. We can kind of have our pick. And we chose Claire because it's very DIY. I was looking at a lot of products this year that aren't necessarily for people who have a ton of money to spend, the super high-end home integration systems. And I was really curious about products like Simply Safe that are easy for people to install, that don't require a lot of initial investment, and that still can do a lot of what some of the higher end systems can do. So Claire, for example, is kind of like a DIY, a little bit easier to program system that can allow you to do things like add your Schlage lock, add your Nest thermostats, add your whole home audio system, and a number of things to the system so that you can control all of them from one place. And now, I'll make an aside by saying not every piece of smart home technology can load onto this system. The marketplace is such that, certain things are compatible, certain things aren't. And so not everything's on there, but a good number of things are on there, which I think just makes it more convenient for the homeowner to just be able to go into one place and affect a number of things.
And one of the things you're having to take into account is what's going to be compatible with the widest range of phones, because you don't know what the future homeowner is going to bring in, right? They could be an Android family, they could be an iPhone family, and so Claire is going to be compatible with both of those things. Schlage is going to be compatible with both of those things.
Exactly.
As opposed to picking something like works with Nest, which is compatible with both with some exceptions, or HomeKit, which is iOS only.
Exactly. And, it's a little bit less of a concern, I think, because we're really providing the winner with an intact prize. So it's like, this is what you get. But of course, it's always in the back of my mind, making sure that if it is indeed an Android user, that there won't, be a lot of stuff that isn't usable. But again, on the other hand, they are getting a home with an iPad. Everything's installed on there. And if you're inside the home using that iPad, you have, everything kind of ready to go. But yeah, it's this is a tough time, I think, in smart home land, where, I read an article recently that said that smart home technology is kind of in the awkward teenage years. And I feel like it's kind of true. Everything's just trying to sort of establish itself in the marketplace, and people, or companies are sort of furiously adding compatibilities and integrations, and everyone's just sort of waiting to see how things shake out and who the market leaders are going to be. And so it is sort of hard to predict where things are going to be in the next few years.
So we talked a little bit about security, and we talked a little bit about the central system that controls everything. So one of the things that I've struggled with a little bit is thinking about appropriate devices for the kitchen, because safety and security is fairly easy. We know that door locks and garage doors make a lot of sense, and cameras make a lot of sense. But in the kitchen, what really seems useful or essential there?
This is a great question, and I struggle with it a lot because I'm someone who's so enthusiastic and optimistic about the future of smart home, and I'm always looking for those killer apps in every room of the house that really make life easier. And so when I'm at CES and I'm wandering around and I'm looking at, the cool new things that are happening in the world of smart ovens and smart refrigerators, I can't help but be a little concerned about, these are investment pieces that people make and they don't replace every few years. And so if I'm looking at, let's say, a Samsung refrigerator that has a screen on it, a tablet on it, if you will, or, sort of like a family hub, I think they're calling it. It's so exciting and it's very cool. And, I often sort of fantasize about having a digital bulletin board in my kitchen that everyone can sort of leave notes on and get information from. But having it built into my refrigerator that I'm not going to plan on replacing anytime soon, maybe for decades, feels a little bit risky. And, it would have to be an incredibly valuable, sort of life-changing piece of technology for me to want to invest in 2016, in something that I'm going to, in theory have for the next, 20 years. So that's hard. On the flip side, I think some of the things that are happening in induction cooking are really exciting. I love the idea that an induction oven an induction cooktop is safe to put your hand on, but is still cooking what's in the pot. There's so many really interesting things going on with cooking. There's a lot of smart pans that are coming out now where the pan is going to help you cook things to the right temperature, and it's going to set itself to the proper temperature so that you don't under or overcook the items that are in the pan. Again, a lot of this stuff is kind of in its infancy stage, but I do like the idea of sort of being able to check on the dishwasher, see when the cycle is going to be done, preheat the oven so that it's hot when I get home. I can't tell you how often I call my house and speak to the kids and say, like, turn the oven on. I'm on my way home from the grocery store and I want to like throw something in as soon as I get there. So to be able to do something like that, I think it's just kind of finding those things that really make a huge difference in your life. And those are likely the things that are worth investing in.
I have the Innova Culinary sous vide, and I'm thinking about getting the Nomiku, and I have the Instant Pot, the slow cooker kind of thing. And these are making steps towards that kind of setting things and having them understand what the recipe is and having them help me cook kind of thing. And they don't feel like they're as investment a piece as the actual huge oven appliance. I was looking at the same fridge that you were looking at CES, and one of the things that I thought was the really valuable idea was just ending the window shopping where my kids come up and open the doors and leave the doors open while they gaze at what's inside. It doesn't have to be a tablet built into the thing that we can leave notes on and will be obsolete in a year. But if it's simply a window into what's inside the fridge with the door still closed, that's sometimes enough.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I love what Innova is doing, although that's a very particular way to cook that not everybody is hip to.
True.
But I love it. And I, like you said, sort of like steps in the right direction, steps in that direction to really feel more empowered and confident in the kitchen. And like you said, if you have kids that are sort of hanging in the fridge trying to figure out what to eat and you're worried about energy efficiency, those are the kinds of innovations that you're going to leap to when they arrive. And I think that's, in some ways why the Nest has been so popular. It was just such a, who doesn't want to save money on their energy bill? And to have a thermostat that can help you. And of course, they're not the only, connected thermostat now on the market, but it was such an easy sell to almost anyone to just say, this is a thermostat that can learn your behaviors and help you save energy, without you having to do anything. And then if you do want to be an active participant in that, you can be checking and controlling your thermostat from wherever you are. I mean, it's just, kind of like a no-brainer.
That's totally not why I bought the Nest.
Why did you buy the Nest? Because it's cool?
I bought the Nest because I could remote control it without having to go downstairs and adjust the thermostat. Absolutely.
Absolutely a killer app for sure. And I think that is how I use my Nest all the time. But what you don't, there's as much to benefit by what I'm not having to do with my thermostat as there is with what I'm having to do by my thermostat.
Totally. Yes, it saved me money, but that was something that was kind of if it actually does that, fantastic. The primary consideration for me was, what can I do to not get kicked in the middle of the night saying I'm too hot or I'm too cold, and I can adjust it and be done with it.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. And then, if it's doing its job right, it's actually learning what your habits are night after night, and then it's doing a lot of the thinking for you. And I guess that's the thing.
Totally.
Just as interesting to me.
And then I got one of the ceiling fans that works in conjunction with it, and so you can have them both understanding what the correct habit is, and let the ceiling fan run more than the air conditioning. Let them negotiate that between themselves, and I don't even have to mess with it.
Right. And is that the Haiku fan that you got?
It is.
That's great. Yeah, we have a couple of Haiku fans in the SmartHome, and it's a fabulous product that I love, and it does such a good job. And it's negotiating with the Nest at all times and trying to figure out, who should run so that the the most efficient combination is being used at all times. It's great.
Have you tried the Hunter ceiling fans that work with HomeKit?
No, I have not yet. But, as HomeKit is really kind of like coming into its own and establishing itself, I'm starting to test more of its products, but I haven't gotten to the Hunter yet.
Cool. Yeah, I have yet to, but I want to. It's one of those things that I think really makes a big difference.
Cool.
What do you think about motorized blinds?
I love them.
Do you have some?
I do. I mean,
Tell
honestly,
me about your blinds.
let's talk about my blinds. It is the weirdest thing when people say to me like, "Oh, you must have some 6 smart home, system." And I go, "Yeah, I do. I do kind of have a 6 smart home system." And they're like, what's your favorite feature?" It's the lights and the blinds. It's not the home theater. It's not any of that kind of stuff. It's the idea that in my kitchen, where I have this huge picture window, and at 2:00 or 2:30, it becomes absolutely impossible to sit at my kitchen table. So I have this shade, which I installed after we moved in. I don't have a house that was wired for shades. So it's a battery operated Lutron shade. And at 2:30, it comes down. And whether anyone's in the house or not, so at the very least, it's saving me money, or at the most, I guess it's saving me money and energy. But at the least, it's just a nice convenience for somebody who happens to be sitting at the table, and I often work at my kitchen table, who doesn't have to get up and go adjust the blinds or just simply depart from the table, which is what I used to have to do before we got this blind. So it's just the little things that really are quite impactful. And I love it so much that we installed 2 more. We have one side of our house, which if you were to walk the perimeter of my house, we have sort of more windows that are more at eye level with someone who could be walking in my yard than on the other side. And so there's 2 windows on that side. They both look into rooms that we want to have some privacy with, like just rooms that have, office equipment and things I don't necessarily want people to see if they happen to be in my yard. And so every night at sunset, when the house orients itself for nighttime, the lights change and other things happen, those shades lower. And so if the kids are in that room and they're, playing on the computer and stuff like that, they don't have to remember to lower the shade. Every night the shade lowers. And so I have privacy around the perimeter of my house every night without having to think about it. There's just, again, those little things that just make such a huge difference. And I just love my shades.
Now, are those a part of the Caseta wireless system that Lutron sells?
I believe that they are. They are called Savoya, and I believe that it's part of Caseta, but I'm not 100% sure.
The Lutron is interesting. Lutron's HomeKit setup is really quite good. I've got the Caseta wireless lighting set up with HomeKit, and I like it a lot. Their app is not an aggregator app, so it only controls Lutron products. But the beautiful thing is that there are other apps that are aggregator apps, and I can control the Lutron stuff from within these other apps.
Right. And that's the really interesting thing that's kind of complicated. I just wrote an article that will be published, I think, in the coming weeks for Apartment Therapy that's basically helps people try to figure out what lane they're going to go into. Are they going to start with an Apple HomeKit? Are they going to start with Works with Nest? Are they going to start with, there's so many different ways to go. And all of these companies are kind of vying for you to start with their one thing and then, add things on top of that or connect things to that. So, it's confusing for people.
It is. I'm glad that I went and looked this up. The Serena remote-controlled shades are the ones that work with Caseta.
That's right. Yes. And these are called, the ones that I have are called Savoya QS.
Yeah. So it's you have to really know which model you're getting to know that it's going to be compatible with the system.
Exactly. And Lutron, I got to say, is really, it's Byzantine. I mean, it's very difficult to understand their product lines. They should probably simplify at some point. Because it's hard to navigate their product lines, but they make great products, and the shades and the lights working together. Again, if you have that third floor, attic that just the sun beats down on, or if you've got that, kitchen window, just to have all of that kind of work in concert and to know, when the sun sets so that the lights can come on, but they don't come on full. They come on at 30% and they give you the ambient glow and enough light to see by. And you start to have really very particular levels of control over the ambiance in your house. And it's one of those things that you don't know how you lived without once you have it.
So it sounds like you have a pretty elaborate lighting system if you're doing these comes on at sunset and glow for 30%. And what are you using to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm essentially using Lutron and using Control 4. But Lutron lights, once they're installed, it's really the sky's the limit with how you program them. So it sounds elaborate, but it really just takes a little bit of vision on the outset. And anyone who's helping you install a smart home system can help you kind of have that vision and figure out what the different scenes of your life are. For example, I have a button at the top of my stairs that says good morning. And when I press that button and then start heading down the stairs, a pathway lights and the kitchen lights up. And it's the button that I push when it's the morning and I'm going downstairs to start making breakfast for the kids. So it sounds elaborate, but it really is just about kind of like thinking thoughtfully about what you do and when you do it, and then having your house kind of support you in doing that. And it's pretty much that simple.
So you have an actual button that's labeled good morning.
I do.
Where did that come from?
I think, it was a conversation with my Control 4 guys that came over to the house. And it was just about, again, like what are the different environments? What are the different, and this is, this is baby stuff compared to some of the stuff that they do. I mean, you can have a party mode where the lights dim and the music comes on and the, shades lower, but only to halfway, or, the shades lower, but not the sheers lower, but not the blackout drapes. I mean, now we're talking about really sort of like high-end systems with lots of options. But I think it, again, just boils down to like, what would make life convenient? Another example that I think I've seen, that I've seen in a lot of smart homes is the all off button. So every smart light in my house can turn off with one button. So we have that button by the front door, and as you leave, you can press all off. And then, when we were discussing this scene, I talked to my smart home guy about the fact that we have a dog, and I didn't want to have a button that would turn off the lights at 3:00, but then if we didn't come home till 8 or 9 o'clock, the dog would be sitting in the dark. And so we also have a minimal amount of lights that come on at nautical sunset, so that even if we've turned all the lights off during the day, a little bit of light comes on for the doggie if she's by herself in the evening. So again, they're just things, and it's sort of like what they say when you move into a new house, like don't try to furnish it all right away, just kind of live in it and understand what life is like in that house, and then go ahead and start, you'll know better what your needs are. I think so too with a smart home. And I think, we had sort of round one of the concept of lighting, how the lighting system would work and the shades would work. And then I went back and revisited it after I lived with it for a while, and we did some other stuff. So it's that kind of iterative thing. But of course, eventually you don't want to be iterating. You just want it to work and be great. And that's kind of where I am now. And it works and it's great.
I was going to ask how often you change things out in your house, but it sounds like you've kind of reached a happy medium.
It's a little bit of both. Of course, I'm always testing things, and I'm always pulling stuff out and testing a new modem or testing, a new thermostat or whatever. But, my family lives here, and I have to not be, if I lived by myself, of course, I could be constantly changing things up. But the house has to function like a family home, and it has to be comfortable for the people in it. And I think constantly pulling things out is a little disruptive to everybody's equilibrium. So yeah, eventually, people ask me all the time, like, you feature so many things on your site, what do you actually use? And of course, I don't use every single thing that, that I feature on my site. I wouldn't recommend it if I didn't think it was a great choice, but, you have to pick some stuff at some point and just go with it. So yeah, I definitely have my things that have stayed, and that's a testament to how valuable they've been to myself and my family, and then things that have kind of faded because they weren't, or we've just kind of moved on to the next cool thing. So it's always a balance, I think.
So you've got the shades, you've got Lutron lights. What else do you have in your home?
Let's see. I have some smart locks from Kwikset. I have the Kivo lock, and I'm expecting the new Kivo lock soon, which I really, really like. What else do we have here? We're very, very long time Sonos people. So we've had Sonos for almost as long as Sonos has been in existence, and absolutely love Sonos. Yeah, I'm of course just drawing a blank on things, but we love our TiVos, and we have the new TiVo Bolt, and we get a lot of crap for our TiVos, but we've been diehard TiVo users since they happened, pretty much, and there were some dark years in there, but I think they're really doing an incredible, they're having an incredible comeback. And so we have TiVos all through the house, and TiVo minis that in the rooms that are less used. And that I find that to be a great system. Right now I'm loving the Ray remote, which is a fantastic remote that kind of feels like a smartphone in your hand. It works really, really well. And it also integrates with Nest. And I just read about some other integrations that are coming out. So that's cool, but I really like it. I'm loving, some of the things that Savant is doing. I don't yet have any of that in my home, but I think what they're doing is very cool. And they have some cool new, like more consumer oriented products coming out. So there's always something new showing up here.
I have the Schlage lock. I have Ecobee installed currently. I have the Hue lights, of course. I have the Haiku fan. I have some of the Insteon ceiling fan products set up on HomeKit. I don't have a MyQ garage set up right now, although I intend to. I think the next thing I'm going to do is change out the door lock another time. Nice.
I mean, I can't tell you that's the other thing that people are like, really, that's your favorite part of the smart home system? But the garage, I mean, when I go out with the kids and I don't want to bring a key, and we're on bicycles and stuff, just being able to open and close the garage with my
absolutely,
which I'm bringing with me anyway, and getting an alert when the garage door has been accidentally left open by one of my lovely children. Just again, like it's the little things that you just are like, how did I live without this? How did I live without being able to get myself into my garage with my smartphone? It sounds kind of silly until you really use it, and then you really realize that you really use it.
Yeah, well, and I feel the same way about the front door lock. I have a lock with a keypad on it, can open and close with the phone, and it's set to auto lock. I know I don't need to take a key with me because it's going to lock itself, and I can get in if my phone's dead.
Yeah,
problem solved. Really works.
A lot of problems solved. And then that with the keys that you can set up for people who are temporarily needing access to your house, it really is a lot of problems solved. So it's kind of exciting.
What do you think about doorbell cameras?
I really like them. I have a version of a doorbell camera. Let me back up. I have a camera as part of my exterior camera system that was on the house when we bought it, shows the front door. So I don't yet have a doorbell camera, but I would like to put one in, even though it would be slightly redundant, because I like the idea of being able to talk to people that are at the door and say, hang on, or no, thank you, or whatever.
I have this crazy vision in mind of being able to see what's happening with the doorbell camera remotely. And, say it's the UPS guy, I can open the garage door, let him put the package in the garage door, and then close it after him, kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it just really gives you, it's like, having eyes in the back of your head, but you have hands. It's like you're home, but you're not. I don't know which analogy makes more sense. But yeah, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that is really exciting to me, and it feels very pedestrian, but it's not. It just allows you to do so much. I remember kind of when the personal technology revolution was happening, and one of my least favorite phrases, in my own life that personal technology solved for me, and I still hear people say it, and it still gets me, and it's such a little thing. But, when I hear people say like, I'll check on that when I get home, or, I'll tell you that when I get home and I can look at my day planner, or, I left that in my other purse and I'll have to call you later and tell you that information. And I just remember thinking like, I don't have to do that anymore. I have everything with me, and I can look in a number of apps and a number of places for pretty much any information that anyone would need. And my I can't tell you that now because I'm not home conversation, pretty much ended. So to me, that what you're talking about with letting the UPS guy into the garage and being able to talk to him from where you are, that's like the next level where your home is supporting you and you physically can be doing things there even though you're not there.
And I totally understand the sentiment of the reaction to I'll do that when I'm home kind of thing. It's always the same feeling I get when someone asks me to fax them something.
Yeah, it's true. But I think it's a way of life that people still don't really fully have a grasp on. And so it just seems normal to them. And again, it's one of those things that like you can't remember how you ever lived without that functionality once you have it. I talk to my mom all the time and she's like, I have that in my Filofax and I think I left that in the other, in my other apartment. I have to wait till I get back there. I mean, it's kind of maddening, but it's also very much normal still for a lot of people.
So what do you think is the first thing someone ought to buy if they're considering moving into sort of DOI smart home?
Such a good question.
Your mom, she has the Filofax, she has the two apartments. Right. What's the first thing that you should say someone should consider?
Well, I think, I mean, I'm not going to cop out. It kind of depends. It's something that I really believe in. I think that people only get frustrated if they've bought something that doesn't truly solve a problem for them. And the pain point has to be pretty high for most people, not necessarily early adopters like you, but for most people to really make not just the money investment, because it's easy to go to the store and buy something, but in order to really make the time investment to learn it and to integrate it into their life, to think of it when they're doing a thing and not sort of forget that they have it and never use it, it has to solve a pretty significant problem for them. I've just found over the years that that's when people really get excited and magic starts happening with learning and adoption. So all of that to say, I won't cop out. I will give you some ideas, but it depends on the problem. So meaning if your wife kicking you to go change the thermostat, if that's a big problem for you, then starting with the Nest or any Ecobee or any kind of learning thermostat makes a lot of sense. And that's where you're going to get the most delight from the product, where you're going to have the most enthusiasm about learning it and continuing to understand it and continuing to know how to use it better. And you're going to want to build from there as opposed to shy away from there. So, there are some sort of, so starting with a thermostat in that case would be a great place to start. And then you've got so many things that are compatible with that system that it just would be fun after that to start adding things. So if you are starting with a Nest thermostat, you could go to the Simply Safe alarm system, which will cue Nest to go into away mode when you set the alarm. You can add the Skybell doorbell, which will start recording on your Nest Cam if it detects motion around your house, including when somebody approaches the door. So there's just you can add the Lifix bulbs, which will lower your lights when you're away. And again, that it would know that because of your thermostat, and the thermostat would go into away mode, and then all these other things would happen. So it just, it kind of snowballs. So I think a thermostat's a great place to start. I think a lock is a great place to start. I think one of these doorbells is a great place to start, because they all really solve a lot of problems. I'll tell you what, before there were smart locks, there were just, the keypad locks, right? They didn't connect to a system, but they...
I had a keypad lock for years, yeah.
Sure. So a keypad lock saved my marriage. I'm not even exaggerating a little, because I was...
Love it.
Because I was so frustrated. My husband would come home, obviously sort of wrecked from a long day at work, distracted, often still on the phone. And he would forget to lock our garage door. He'd come in through the garage. He'd shut the garage door, the large garage door, but he would forget to lock the door that leads into our home. And this drove me absolutely crazy. I thought, how can you not be, locking our home and the children and us and safety? And we had so many fights over this. And then I finally got a keypad lock that auto locked, just like you mentioned. And so he never had to lock it. He just shut it and it would lock itself. And it literally dramatically impacted our marriage. But again, these are things that are kind of life-changing. And if you have a specific problem and you can get some counsel on what product would specifically, fix that problem, that's where you should head first.
I want to thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us. I know we're running a little long here. This has been the Apple Insider podcast. Carley, where can people find out more information about smart homes from you?
Thanks. This has been such a fun conversation. I am at Carley K, CarleyK. So that's where you can find me. And you can find me at Carley Knobloch, which is spelled Knobloch. So Carley with an E and then all of that mess. You can find me there on Twitter or Pinterest or Instagram. And then the HGTV SmartHome you can learn more about at hgtv.com/smart. And you can enter once a day to win that beautiful house in Raleigh. I think you can enter twice a day, once at HGTV and once at DIY Network. So definitely go check that out and enter for your chance to win the home. It's beautiful. Just reach out and say hi on any social channel, and I will respond.
Thank you so much. This has been wonderful.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to this episode of the Apple Insider podcast. Joining me is the esteemed Mikey Campbell, editor of Apple Insider.
What's going on, Victor?
We got a number of iPhone 7 rumors, and the first of which I want to talk about is some drawings of the thing suggesting that they're a dual camera and a smart connector will be exclusive to a 5.5-inch Plus model.
Right. Yeah.
What do you think of this thing?
Well, Ming-Chi Kuo a couple months ago said that he thought it would, or what his sources say within Apple's supply chain, that Apple was either going to launch a dual camera exclusive Plus model either as a standalone or as a 5.5-inch replacement altogether, depending on supply. So this kind of lines up with what he was saying, right? Basically that, there's a report that came in today that basically said, Kuo said that the 5.5-inch model was going to be solely a dual camera setup, which means that if you want a dual camera or the whatever features Apple builds into a dual camera model, you're going to have to stump for the more expensive and bigger screened iPhone this year. No word yet on what's going to happen next year, but it seems that they're going to use that as a differentiator this year, kind of like how they still only offer optical image stabilization on the 6S Plus versus
now
the 6S.
This rumor also suggests that the smart connector will only appear on this larger model.
Yeah, that's To me, that doesn't really fit Apple's agenda or strategy.
Modus operandi.
Yeah, it doesn't really fit in with their general scheme of products. I might be able to swallow it if it was just if it was like a standalone 7 Plus model, like a super top end one, then maybe. But I don't think that they would split their user base like that. It's basically, people buy the 6S or the 6S Plus. It's not. I feel like they don't really. The main feature or function that defines the two obviously is the display size, right? I don't think that Apple wants to create a larger rift between those two products, kind of making it more of a difficult decision. The only thing that I would say is that they might want to experiment with the smart connector only headphone, kind of, to get rid of the headphone jack thing. But other than that, it would be probably a poor decision.
Yeah. And the other thing that's interesting about this is the dual camera bit, which we've talked about since last year, right? We suspect that this is the Lynx or LINX camera unit that was bought that Apple acquired from an Israeli-based company.
Yeah, so Lynx it's the Israeli firm.
Is it Lynx or Linux? Do we know?
I think it's Lynx. I think it's Lynx.
Okay.
Who knows? They haven't really mentioned it outside of press releases, so
right.
But
they specialized in multi-aperture imaging technology, which what should that mean to the regular person?
Basically, well, they have a couple. They have a few patents and IP bits of IP that would apply to a multi-camera iPhone. So basically, their claim to fame is stitching together multiple images from multiple cameras to create a higher resolution picture. So you'd have like 2 or maybe 4 cameras taking a picture of the same scene, and you stitch those together to make a high resolution one, or make a better HDR image, or various implementations of that.
I mean, you could also refocus the same way that Lytro refocused.
Yeah, to a lesser extent. It's not a light. It's not a
light field camera the way
it's
Lytro
not a light
is,
field camera, but you can mimic that kind of function to a certain extent. But I think what Apple is, from what Ming-Chi says, and he's been pretty accurate in the past, that Apple's using Lynx's technology to make 2 distinct cameras. So like one would be a wide angle view, kind of like the one that you have on the current iPhone, and another one that either features a zoom lens or has some sort of telephoto functionality to it. And so we'll see on that. His most recent note says that the algorithms are not really up to snuff yet. They should be by the time the 7 comes out, but he's not sure that they're going to have it ready in time to implement all the features they wanted to, like a really high variation or variable zoom lens on there. There's also interesting to note that Sony is Apple sources their camera modules from Sony traditionally, but it looks like LG is also going to be participating this year. So Sony might take care of maybe I'd say the main, quote unquote, the main camera on the back. So probably the one that people use most often, and then maybe LG will supply modules for like a telephoto version or something.
Intriguing. Now, the current how much RAM is in the current iPhone?
RAM is 2, right?
Okay. So we have another room here that says that in order to power this 2-camera unit, we're going to get 3 gigabytes of RAM.
Yeah. Yeah. That kind of makes sense, right? The Sony, I know the Sony, the backlit modules on that, I believe they come with their own allotment of RAM, but Apple, being Apple and marketing the quote most popular phone in the world, which is the iPhone. I mean, most popular camera in the world, most used, which is the iPhone. They built in a lot of picture taking features directly into the A9 chip, and have been doing so in the past for the various A series silicon. So they did the same with the A9 this year, and supposedly they're going to step it up to 3 gigabytes next year to handle the added stress of slapping another camera onto.
So why not 4?
I don't know, cost savings. They may not need 4 gigabytes of RAM. 3 gigabytes of RAM is probably sufficient. DSLRs and those top end cameras have commensurate amounts of RAM, and they perform well.
The other thing, this is the jackpot rumor, right? This is the one with all of the features that people are going to recognize. Says that the 2017 iPhone will be a complete redesign. And so far that's not surprising because every couple of years we get a totally new case design, right?
Well, yeah, but what's surprising about that, and what makes it kind of a iffy rumor, is that this year is supposed to be the redesign year, right? So
correct.
From the renderings that we see, it looks like it's going to be, I don't know, it's not going to be as vast a departure in design from, say, the iPhone 4 to the iPhone 5, right? It's not going to change from like a sandwich to a metal back design. It'll be more like a 5, I guess, to a 6.
Differential between the design 6 and a 6S.
Well, I mean, there is no design differential, right?
Well, it was all internal for that one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, no, I'm talking about external design. So, I mean, the external design between the 3 and the 4, and then the 4 and the 5, and that's what Apple designates. That's what they save their numerical designations for, is exterior design changes, right? So every time they change design, they change the number, and the inter-year or the biannual internal buffs are decimals. So this year is supposed to be a numerical change to 7, which would suggest that they're also changing the exterior. But from what I see, it doesn't look like they're doing.
So the rumor is that this year's iPhone 7 will have a similar design and form factor to the current 6S, and the big rumors are going to happen in 2017. So for one thing, we're already changing away from the expected pattern.
Yes.
And that the radical redesign includes things like Touch ID, FaceTime camera, and speaker basically embedded in an edge-to-edge display that conceals the components and sensors underneath the screen. So currently, if you look at your phone, you've got a chin and a forehead, right? The chin contains the home button, and the forehead contains the speaker and the proximity sensor and the camera. Yep. And what we're talking about now, imagine if you will, is that you still get a home button and Touch ID, but they're basically just that circle with icons on either side of them. And the same is true. You get a speaker opening up where the forehead is, but everything else is screen.
Right. So, I mean, I don't know. These rumors have...
Although that seems awkward to me as in practice, because if you're scrolling and there's screen on either side of the speaker and you scroll, you've now got a speaker in your scroll. It seems interesting, right?
Well, rumors like this come up every single year, and they've been around since, I think, the iPhone 5 they started. Edge display, and then after Touch ID got implemented, they Well, actually, the virtual home button that rumor's been around since the iPod Touch came out. So, I mean, these are kind of like pie in the sky ideas that I don't think Apple will necessarily implement those, and especially not. I find it even harder to believe that they're going to do it in a internal buff year, which would be a S series year, because that would be a major design shift in itself, and the retooling and all that kind of stuff that goes along with it. I don't know that they would do it, especially considering that these rumors are saying that it's going to be just for one top tier model. I don't think they would. I don't think Apple would do that. It's kind of like issuing a limited edition device just for, it's a few people, a few early adopters, but Apple's not about that. They're about scale, right? They're about mass production and mass purchasing. So, to me, it doesn't really make sense that they would launch it in 2017. Perhaps that they're experimenting with it right now, and that's where these rumors are coming from. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that these things are going to actually go into production for 2017. It's also peculiar that there are rumors circulating about a 2017 iPhone when Apple is known to experiment with many, many designs, and then only months prior to going with mass production deciding on one. So kind of speculating on that is a fool's errand at this point, especially for 2017.
Right. And one of the things that we have heard about so far for the 2017 phone is the idea of curved glass at all the edges, and the notion that it's going to be an AMO LED display instead of the traditional LCD display. Right.
So those things are obviously they're sexy, right? I mean, I'd like an OLED, curved OLED display. And
do you worry about pixel burn-in with an OLED display?
Well, pixel aging, you mean?
Yeah. I mean, we've
technically a picture. Pixel aging. There's no burn-in on OLED. Come on, bro.
When you can turn the screen off and see where the pixels have been lit most often, it's burn-in, isn't it?
No. It's technically, well, for OLED, it would be aging.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's aging because by being on all the time, they dim. But
right. So one of their aging.
You can see where they've been,
rates.
Right? When you turn the display off, you can see where it's been on, and it's not good.
They're both ghost images, I guess would be the most PC term. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm just being an ass. I don't think that it would really. I don't think I'd be really worried about that. I don't think so, because the way I'm thinking about how I use my phone, and it's not like I stay on a certain screen or there's a certain graphic that's, popped up all the time for longer than, a minute or so, I'd say. Cause it's not like I browse around on my home screen for 5 minutes trying to find an app that I want, or just, looking for apps that I want to look at. I go to my home screen and then I open an app and then fool around in there. So, I mean, the screen is always refreshing itself. Yeah, so I don't really worry about that at all.
Okay.
And there's ways to, negate those effects.
Sure.
Through software.
And through software, through keeping the screen turning off or dimming or things like that. They do a lot of those kinds of tricks already. We
saw that a lot in the iPad Pros, right? With the persistent, what do you call it? The display controller to save battery life. It refreshes at a different rate.
Yeah.
If the image is static. I forget what they had some sort of catchy term for it. I don't remember what it was.
Don't they always?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. But I mean, if they do release that phone in 2017, obviously I'll buy it. For work, of course.
Oh,
I mean, it's my job. I have to. But I don't know how that it would wreak havoc on their already, let's say, diverse iPhone lineup. They're becoming like the BMW of the
So one of
smartphone
everything
world.
model now.
Yeah, let's just have a little bit of everything, and not really be the master of anything, as a jack of all trades kind of approach to product design. And I don't think they should stray that far from their tried and true formula.
But Mikey, they've said no 1,000 times.
Uh-huh. I don't.
You just think they're saying yes too much.
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and wrap this up here, because I appreciate your time and I know you're short on it, but I wanted to make sure we got in some coverage about these rumors. What's your parting thought on all of this stuff?
The design renders look legit, from what we know. As far as what phone or which model is going to get the dual camera, it seems to me that it would make sense that the larger one would get it, and it's not going to be just Apple's not going to launch like 3 phones, like a 7, a 7 Plus, and a 7 Plus special edition or something. It doesn't. If supply constraints are that low that they have to do something like that, I think they would probably just save it for the S model and maybe implement it on both the 7S and 7S Plus. I don't think they would muddy their lineup that much by launching 3 phones in a cycle. It seems that 2 is more than enough. Especially, the 6 was the first time they launched, the 2 different models, and now they have the SE, and I don't know, it's just becoming a bit too much. So if they can get the production up and running for the 7 Plus to get dual cameras, and I think that's what they're going to do, kind of like a differentiator as the current optical image stabilization strategy, something in the same vein. And I think it looks like they're going to be able to do it. So I would expect a dual camera version only on the 5.5-inch model, which is kind of disappointing because I don't like a really big screen. But I do like the idea of 2 cameras. So I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, this has been another fine amount of time wasted listening to the Apple Insider podcast. Joining me has been Mikey Campbell, editor at Apple Insider. Mikey, where can people find you on the internet?
On Apple Insider, of course, and at Mikey Campbell 81 on the Twitter machine.
Mikey, if they introduce a 4.7-inch dual camera phone, I expect you to eat your hat.
Indeed, I will. I don't wear a hat, but I'll eat one.
Fantastic.